show that's 3 dimensions away from The Flash actually adapting the Flashpoint storyline. I'm your host, 3D Jake, and today we're looking at The Flash movie released in 2023. The Flash movie is directed by Andy Muschietti, who directed It and It Chapter 2, as well as Mama, and is written by Christina Hodson, who wrote Birds of Prey, and the canceled Batgirl movie, unfortunately. And from a story by John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein, who did the story on Spider-Man Homecoming, as well as Vacation 2015 and Game Night, which I recommend highly, as well as Joby Harold. Joby Harold, of course, who worked on the movie Awake, and as well as worked on the story for Zack Snyder with Army of the Dead. The movie stars Menace to Society, Ezra Miller, Sasha Calle, Michael Shannon, Marabella Vedu, sorry if I butchered the names, Kiersey Clemens, and Michael Keaton as Batman. The movie is essentially about Barry Allen having to go back in time to stop his mom from dying, and thus so creating a flashpoint, paradox, which makes it where no superhumans exist except for Supergirl, and basically no metahumans exist. And so he has to team up with Michael Keaton as Batman and a dumber version of himself from 2013 to stop Zod from destroying the world. That is the plot of the movie. I am not joking. Literally, part of it sounds great, but then when you say the dumb version of himself, imagine Back to the Future if Marty McFly was stupid. And I'm not saying I'm saying if Marty McFly was just doing stupid shit all the time. Literally, that's how I'm phrasing it. When I say stupid, I mean doing stupid shit. Okay? Imagine if Marty McFly was doing stupid shit all the time. And it would just be annoying, okay? That is the most stupidest thing ever. I'm going to get into my negatives, but I'm going to tell you some positives. Because I really do I love Michael Keaton as Batman, okay? I've been waiting for this movie since I heard that Michael Keaton was returning as Batman. When I first heard they were going to do it back in 2016, or not 2016, but 2017, 2018, I was a fan of the CW show. I still think, the first couple seasons are pretty damn good. But then when growing up, I was not alive when Batman and Batman Returns came out. But I did watch it on VHS as a kid, and I really love Batman Returns. I love Batman Returns so much. So much so where I actually watched Batman 89 and Batman Returns just to hype myself up for the Flash movie coming out. And so imagine going into this. I like that because they were saying in press, oh, this is like a sequel to Batman Returns, but 40 years later. And I was like, oh, cool. And so I was really excited, and so I was like, all right. And so I went and sat down, watched this movie, and Michael Keaton does not show up for a good third of the movie. Mostly, he doesn't show up to the second act of the movie, in which I kind of expected him to not be the whole star of the movie, but I at least expected him to be in a good chunk of the movie. I mean, seriously, literally, the whole movie is mostly Barry and then dumb Barry, which is why I call it 2013 Barry, because that dude is dumb. He's so dumb to where it gets annoying to where it's like watching Beavis and Butthead. Only, Barry that's now is actually smart. So the dumb Barry is just like Beavis and Butthead combined into one. And if you give him a lighter, he's going to burn down the house. That's how stupid he is. And so, whenever, this movie has a lot of issues, but it does have a lot of good things. I really like, how faithful the comic book nods are. There's a lot of comic book nods in the movie to Flashpoint storyline, like Barry losing his powers when he's, and him trying to regain his powers with the help of Batman. That is very obviously, connected to the Flashpoint comic. And there's also other nods, spoilers. Okay, this is just spoilers. Okay, I'm saying if you haven't seen it, I'm telling you, this is spoilers review, okay? There is death in this movie, okay? And in the comic Flashpoint storyline, Batman dies, obviously, just like in the comic. And also Supergirl, who is actually Superman in the comic, he dies as well. And so, and I like how they did the Superman storyline to Supergirl. And we get to see, and I really think Sasha Calle is great as Supergirl. And I like how, Zod is kind of the Wonder Woman Aquaman storyline is all one into Zod. I kind of wish they would have did the Wonder Woman and Aquaman storyline. But I understand why that they're probably saving that for an actual Flashpoint movie. because this is more or less just like I understanding this. I think it works better the Zod aspect because it makes more sense to me that Zod's there, not Wonder Woman and Aquaman at war, because it just wouldn't work, I don't think, unless you do it faithfully. Like when I heard that they were going to do Flashpoint, I'm like, oh, Jeffrey Dean Morgan's, Negan himself is is Thomas Wayne's. That means he's going to be Flashpoint Batman, which that was going to happen whenever Snyder was on board as a producer and stuff. But unfortunately, after everything that happened, so that and then they kept changing musical chairs with directors. Because first they had like Rick Farquhar, who now was worked on, who did Dope, and then it was going to Flash. Now he just did Mandalorian, and so he's a really good director. And he was going to do it, but then of course he dropped out. And then of course John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, who worked on the story that is actually used in the movie, were going to write and direct it. But then of course they only just stayed as writers because they couldn't get, there was a story, like their story wasn't 100% intact. So then of course finally, they brought in. Also, they had Seth Grahame-Smith was going to write it as well at one point, but then he left the project as well. I think he was fired even. That's, and so they had a bunch of ideas, like Flash fighting a bunch of villains, and finally, after I think John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein's story came, oh no, it's just going to be like Flash traveling back to 2013 and fighting Zod. And I think that's pretty cool. I really do think that. I think Joby Harrell and Christina Hodson kind of did like the final tweaks on the script to make it, faithful. I think Joby Harrell did the past, I think, I don't know, but I was just hearing Michael Keaton say this wasn't the final draft he read, so I guess maybe Joby Harrell came in and did like a polish on the script. But I do like that there was a lot of comic book nods to the Flashpoint storyline in this movie. And I like how there is a bunch of multiverses opened up, and it does create a new Flashpoint paradox. That to me, there's a lot of great nods in this that I'm sure I'm forgetting. And how Barry gets his powers back and all this cool stuff like that's from Flashpoint. That's from Flashpoint. And then and I just think it's really cool, and to see Thomas Wayne, Thomas Wayne's not in this, but to see Bruce Wayne, Michael Keaton back is also really cool. I think the acting is great. Everyone in the movie except for Dumb Barry is great. Everyone has greatness. I mean, there were some people complain about the roommate scene, but like everybody, I think is really solid. The mom, who is played by the great Maribela Vidu, she is great as Barry's mom. I'm like, she just solid. I think she's even better than the CW mom. And Ron Livingston, who replaces Billy Crudup, I think he did a good job as Barry's dad. I still think Billy Crudup had an edge over him, but he did a good job what he was given. I think it's pretty great. And as for, Michael Shannon, he's only there for like, I think that was maybe less than 30 minutes of screen time. And he's mostly there just to be the baddie whenever they get to that point. And what he's given is good, but like I kind of wish they did more with his character, because like he's supposed to be the main antagonist when really he's not. There's a secret antagonist, but they don't really do nothing with that antagonist. It almost feels like they're setting that up for a sequel. The main antagonist, that was a secret antagonist, but they don't do nothing with it. It's all convoluted really. And also I thought the directing was great. I think everything in this movie about the acting, directing was great. It's fantastic. I mean, it's like really. I mean, the acting and directing was not bad. That was not at all. One thing I can say positive is the direction and acting are not bad. And I like that. It's like whenever they tries to solve this problem of saving his mom, and I like the idea that some problems, and I hope I'm not butchering the line, don't have a solution. So that means whenever like they're talking about you can't solve all your issues, you can't solve everything, you can't save your mom, because basically by him trying to save his mom, he's destroying this world, because your mom has to die. It's like almost like when Into the Spider-Verse happened. It's like you can't save your family. Like if Fisk tried to save his family, you cannot save your family. So you're just screwed. And so he just has to let his mom die, and it sucks. But that really made me emotional, especially at the end. I got emotional when he went to the grocery store and he put the can of tomato sauce back on there. And he puts his hand, hugs his mom one last time, and he has to say goodbye to her because he can never see her again. I mean, that to me got me emotional. I was like, that is a great scene. That right there, if it was more like that in the rest of the movie, this would be fantastic. And also, there's some great stuff I like. Like there's a couple of jokes I love. Like Arthur's dog. For instance, he calls in the scene, him and Dunbarry call the numbers and for the Justice League, and obviously Cyborg is still a football player, and And so he calls Wonder Woman, and they can't find her. So then he calls Aquaman's dad, who's in the lighthouse tower, and it's Tamara Morrison. We answer the phone, and is like, "Is Arthur there?" And he goes, "You want to talk to my dog?" It just made me laugh. Just, I thought that made me just hysterical. I was like, Aquaman's a dog in this movie. Oh yeah, and also like the Back to the Future joke that's pretty funny too, where like it's just so funny the like Back to the Future joke when they're like, oh, that's Eric Stokes is because he was originally meant to be in Back to the Future, and so I thought that was really cool. And then like, no, that's Michael J. Fox. They're like, Michael J. Fox from Footloose. And like, no, he was this Kevin Bacon, like from Top Gun, and I'm like, that just made me laugh, and I'm like, I could see why Tom Cruise loved that movie because of that joke right there, which I did not say that originally. Someone else said that, but I'm just repeating that back because someone else said that too, and I agree 100% with them. Also, there's some cameos in the movie. That's something that really made me happy, was really special. This has like, obviously when they're going to the multiverse, they go through, like, they see CGI Chris Reeve and Helen Slater, which it turns out Helen Slater actually said she shot that. Like, they called her and Nicolas Cage up to the studio, and they shot these roles, and then they just de-aged them, which, that's, and that it is what it is. But, Helen Slater looked okay. See, Chris Reeve, I didn't mind it because it's supposed to be, like, it's CGI, and there's no way really to do it without, because Chris Reeve's no longer with us, unfortunately. So I didn't mind. I thought that was special. Because, I mean, if they would have put Brandon Routh and everyone, why didn't you put Brandon Routh? If they would have put Brandon Routh, people would have said, well, put it to the real. Why don't they just make a CGI Chris Reeve? That's better. But I'm like, they want to pay tribute to the legacy of DC. And even though, yes, he was Superman Returns in a way, he was the Chris Reeve in a way, everyone wants to see the original Chris Reeve Superman, which I don't know why they just use old footage and then they kind of computerize it in. I would have done, but. And also, we see, finally, Nicolas Cage as Superman. Nicolas Cage, because he's supposed to make a long time ago, there's a documentary about the death of Superman Lives. He's supposed to do Superman Lives. And I did not know this because I went back and just rewatched some of that documentary, which is on YouTube for free if you get to check it out. And there's a concept art of him fighting a giant spider, and they took that concept art and they used it for this movie. Like him and the spider. And the suit, they actually even got Colleen Atwood to do the suit for Nicolas Cage to wear for that scene. They put dots on him, and he come and fought the fake thing, and then they said, all right, bye, see you at the premiere. Or whatever. And then, of course, I like that, and I also like that they included Adam West as Batman, because he don't get a lot of love, and I just like that they did that. And they also included George Reeves as Superman, and it felt like a love letter to DC. And I also feel I love at the end how they bring back George Clooney one last time. And I'm like, yes, bat nipples! Yes. And like when it's like, I saw some funny comments online saying, well, is that Ezra Miller's punishment for creating chaos and delaying the movie for 2 years? He's trapped in the Clooneyverse. And I was just like, that made me laugh. I'm like, I got a good chuckle out of that. But those are the things I really liked about the movie. I also really like, the lasso of truth joke. I know some people hate that thing, where just like when the Flash is like, I know what sex is, but I've never practiced it. And Batman, the Flash one was more funnier than the Batman when he grabs it. But I thought it was funny. I thought it was a fun one. And the beginning action sequence with Ben Affleck was awesome as well. Michael Keaton is great. Everything the action sequence has done, I really like though. There also is one of the deaths that I thought was really cool, that you see like when the Flash is going around as the Dark Flash attacks him, Supergirl getting her neck snapped. If you blink and miss it, when you see her last death is her getting her neck snapped by Zod. I'm like, that is so cool. Why didn't they use that the last death and show it in person instead of just seeing it like a little blink and you miss it moment? Because that would have paid homage to Man of Steel when Superman did to Zod. And also, I sent this to my buddy Ryan, who just did a spoiler review on it, and we were talking about when they were talking about Superman, and I'm like, Henry Cavill has a cameo. Why not just bring Henry Cavill back for this scene? What if he showed up and fought Supergirl? Like, because he said that the child did not make it. Why didn't he just show up and then fight Supergirl and kill Supergirl? That would have made it more impelling. But then I guess Zod would have just been there. He wouldn't have had, but everybody would have wanted to see Zod fight Supergirl. So I mean, they could have done like a 2-way fight or something. I don't know. I'm just saying. And that's what I really liked about the movie, though. Now on to what I disliked. The CGI, obviously. Yes, everyone in the world and their mom has said and talked about CGI. yes, I understand it's not great. And there are some parts of it that are great, but it feels like every time he does the time travel thing, it just all looks like a PS3 cutscene. You know, like it does not look real. It feels like this is a tie-in movie game whenever you look at the CGI in the movie. But when he's not doing the time travel thing, like there's some scenes whenever they're in the desert with Batman and stuff like that, and when Batman flies, it looks great. But then mostly is when the biggest issue is whenever he goes to time travel, that's when it looks terrible. Or when he went back in time to stop Zod, that looked terrible. But everything else looked pretty decent, I thought. So most of the CGI was pretty decent, but some of it like that was kind of awful. And as for the story was kind of weak. The story felt like there could have been a better story. And it just felt like 3 different stories in one. And I'm stealing that from Ryan. Ryan, I'm sorry I had to steal that from you, because I do agree with you on that. It does feel like 3 different stories. It does. It feels like, you have Supergirl's story, you have Flash's story, and then you have Michael Keaton's Batman story, which we've already seen. And it's like they're trying to merge 3 different stories in one when it should have just done the Flash movie first and then Flashpoint at a later date. I agree with that. Sorry I had to steal that from you, Ryan. Also, there's a plot hole in the movie, by the way. Alright, so Reverse Flash, like Andy Muschietti even said this, kill Barry's mom, because the dad had to go to get some tomato sauce at the store. Okay, well, so when Barry puts some tomato sauce back on there and the mom's alive, so the dad has no need to go to the store now. So the Reverse Flash just flew by and was like, just ran by and goes, you know what? The dad's home. I'll wait until he's not home. Does that make any sense? Because there's no tomato sauce. So he goes and kills the mom. And also, let's talk about logistics here, okay? He gets his dad exonerated because he puts the tomato on a higher shelf and shows him there. Okay, but yet he was able to make it to the house, okay? He literally was walking as the mom was stabbed. So that means literally he was out on the driveway. So that means there's like less than 10 seconds, okay? Really, it does not exonerate him. Like, he literally went back to the house and was in the driveway at the time of her death. So you can pinpoint that he was there. So I'm like, that doesn't prove nothing. Yeah, I do believe he went to the store and grabbed some tomato sauce. But if I'm a prosecutor, like, Your Honor, he was there at the time frame, okay? Like, it wasn't like he was at the store the whole time and then got home and she was laying there dead. No, he got there as she screamed. Like, it doesn't exonerate him. I'm sorry. That doesn't. And also the meaningful deaths, like I said, Supergirl and Batman die first. Like, Batman sacrifices himself, which I think that's okay, I guess. But then I like his second death more. I just wish they had more meaning. Like, to me, Supergirl, I wish they would have just kept the neck snapping one. It's in there, but I'm just like, I wish they would have done it and made that the main death of her instead of just draining her blood. They would have snapped it, then drained her blood. That would have been cool. And then Michael Keaton should have I wish he would have been like, gets after he fights Non, and then Non wounds him and he's dying from his injuries. I wish he would have said, "Run, Barry, run," and then let Zod's world engine to solve the whole world as Barry and dumb Barry escape. Which also brings me to my point. Dumb Barry is the most annoying freaking character in this whole movie. Sorry, my nose is itchy. Dumb Barry is like literally so stupid because literally like a dumb man's Marty McFly. Literally he's so dumb. I'm like, he has stoner roommates that are like just even as dumb as him, which I'm like, they're so stupid. And especially when he's like, Barry's like, Barry's like, you gotta tell his mom, and then he makes a fort, and he's like, and then on top of that, he gets worse as the movie goes on, and it just like until like at the end when he revealed that Dumb Barry's Dark Flash. I'm like, how did he become Dark Flash? He's so an idiot. I laughed when I saw that. I'm like, it's Dumb Barry, isn't it? Yes, it is. I'm like, oh my god. And then Dumb Barry's Dark Flash. I started laughing hysterically. I'm like, that's hilarious. Yeah, that was pretty stupid though. Yeah, and also, if you think about it, it has a lot of stupid moments in this movie. Like, and the movie has a lot of dumb moments, especially like, and I will say, Dumb Barry makes President Barry look like Einstein. And also, this movie does feel like the poor man's X-Men Days of Future Past. like, you have someone that's going back in time to prevent something catastrophic from happening. And then, of course, not catastrophic, but something, you got to stop something from happening. And then they go and meet a character that they need, who is now like a hermit character. And then they have to team up, and they always team up together to stop, like, you know, something catastrophic from happening. And then they end up all, like, you know, dying at the end. Well, at least in Days of Future, they die in the future. They all end up dying in this movie, and I'm just like, this is basically the poor man's X-Men Days of Future Past. Only, I think, I asked a bunch of my friends, which one's better, this or Days of Future Past? And they all said Days of Future Past is way, way better. And the visual effects look 10 times better. And I'm like, I agree. And so, yeah, if I had to give this movie a grade, I would give it a solid B-. Thank you so much for watching.
You're strapped to your parachutes.
Where's yours?